Hello, everyone, and welcome to the ArtistWorks Virtual Jazz Masterclass, our very first Jazz Masterclass online. I am Patricia Butler. I'm the CEO and co-founder of ArtistWorks. And just in case you don't know who we are an online music instruction company, and we work with 37 world-renowned musicians who teach us masterfully as they play. They've recorded somewhere between 25 and 30 hours of content that is music instruction for really every level of player. And what's different about ArtistWorks is you can submit a video to these teachers and they will respond with a video that gives you some guidance and some suggestions on your submission so you can go work on those things. And then we show that video exchange, the student submission and the teacher's response to everybody that's learning in the course. So that gives us a very different kind of learning experience. So you not only learn from the lessons, but you can learn from these video exchanges when you submit a video yourself, or if you want to just watch everybody else's video. So our virtual jazz masterclass has been a contest online for well over a month now. So throughout the event today, we're going to be doing a lot of things, talking, playing, learning, but we're also going to be announcing today. And so I will be announcing our first, second, and third place winners. We had 3 grand prize winners, 2 of which are going to be with us today. And they will be coming on screen to learn with John Patitucci and with Marienthal, and hopefully with Peter Erskine, but we are having some difficulty getting the grand prize winner connected for Peter Erskine. So what we wanted to do here at the very beginning of our virtual masterclass was for you to hear these masters play. And so they are going to entertain us for the next few minutes, and we're going to start off with Mr. John Patitucci. And so, John, please take it away from here.
Okay. All right. I can't hear you, Patricia.
Thank you so much, John. I really appreciate that beautiful opening piece. And I want to welcome also Peter Erskine, who you should be able to see in your upper right-hand corner. Hi, Peter, and Eric Marienthal. And so one of you is going to start us off next. And I believe that is going to be Peter. So, Peter, we'll leave it to you.
A 1, 2, a 1, 2.
Thank
You
you,
did.
Peter.
You're welcome.
Yay!
Hey.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. That was a great backing track, too. And so that leaves us with Mr. Eric Marienthal, who's going to help us start this event musically as well. Eric.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you very much.
All right. So you got
All
us off
right,
to
all
a
right,
great
all right.
start. Yeah, that's what happens when you work with Grammy artists. You get some really awesome music, right? That's great. Thank you guys. Thank you, John, Peter, and Eric. I really appreciate all that you bring to us, musically. And this is really a remarkable virtual masterclass for those of you who are watching. If you don't know who these guys are, you better go find out because these are legends, these are icons in the jazz industry, and not only for their performing, but also for their education. So, you guys, the last couple of weeks have been a wee bit crazy. Eric and I are here in California, and the place is burning down.
Yeah,
It's,
especially where you are.
it's,
Yeah.
it's really kind of crazy, but yeah, you're safe down there, Eric.
Yeah, we're safe. I live close to the. I live very close to the beach, so if something goes wrong, I
Oh,
can
good.
just jump in the water. Yeah, jump in the ocean.
Water.
But yeah, it does feel. I mean, where you are up in Napa, that's you guys are in a different situation, a weird situation. I remember the night before last looking up at the sunset, and
Oh,
the sun was this like blood red color, and it just looked incredibly apocalyptic. Apocalyptic.
yeah, it felt like
Apocalyptic.
Mars.
There you
I
go.
don't know what
Yeah.
Mars looks like, but it was really quite surreal here. And the air quality is so bad today. I have to apologize ahead of time if I am, coughing a little bit or have to take a sip of water. There's just no way you can get it out of your house. So I apologize for that. It is pretty thick here. But we've all been stuck in the house recently. So in the last couple of weeks, we're back to school. Peter and John, I know you guys are back to teaching. Tell me a little bit about what's happening. Yes,
Well,
Peter.
speaking from Santa Monica, uh, also as you can see in California, um, I'm I'm grateful that the ArtistWorks platform uh, really prepared me uh, for this distance learning phenomenon that I think caught a lot of us by surprise that we would be doing this and be doing it for the duration or length of time that we're now going to be teaching and learning, uh, as opposed to being able to meet in person. Um, so ArtistWorks was visionary in that sense, and I've been able to bring much of what I learned uh, from engaging with my students on the ArtistWorks platform to my students at the University of Southern California. We began in the middle of August. The kids returned to school. Um, I'm happy that all my drum students, including all the incoming students, decided to stick with it
Oh,
this
good.
year, and it's interesting. It's been a remarkably um, effective and intensive means of study. The camera you know, can take us places where get a nice shot of my sandals, uh,
Yeah, that's
but
cool.
also the snare drum. Um, a lot of things we can do in terms of close up and audio and video. As I said to my colleagues, and I hope that all schools are faring well, but you know, at least down here at the University of Southern California, we're only 4 miles from Hollywood, so we had to up our game, at
Yeah,
least in terms of
that's
in terms
right.
of the video, and
Yeah.
I learned how to do that thanks to Artist Work. So
Oh, good.
we're very busy at school, and we'll be until Thanksgiving when we'll take a break, and then we'll all see what happens from that point forward.
And you're okay with the fire and the smoke? Well, fires plural and smoke and all that. I mean, how's that
The
going?
the air is bad. It's worse inland. I had occasion to went to go visit my daughter, who's on the east side of town, and it was
Mm-hmm.
bad.
Yeah.
Um, it's it's unsettling, and it is
Yes.
ominous, as you mentioned.
Yeah, it is. Well, I'm glad that you're safe nonetheless. And
Thank you.
Mr. Patitucci, what's happening on your side of the continent? Remember, you're muted.
Well, in New York, thankfully, after obviously dealing with heavy bouts with COVID for the state. I mean, we've been fortunate at my house because we live outside the city, but we're lucky in that we're not dealing with all the fires and stuff that you guys are, and I'm sad about that because I have family out in California too. So
Yeah.
as well as my daughter, my brother, one of my sisters, and my daughter live there. So and my aunt and uncle, and so a fair amount of people. So I'm concerned about that. Um, the whole issue for us here, um, we've been pretty involved. My family has been involved in activism about all the racial injustice that we see.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's been hugely on our mind. And in fact, now I've been doing a film score for 2 months about this movie called Chicago, America's Hidden War. It's a documentary. It's all
Hmm.
about the suffering in the Black community in the South Side, which is from gang violence, police brutality, government corruption, all these things. And also, but there's some hope involved in this particular documentary because a friend of mine went in there and mobilized a lot of people in the churches to really start helping the
Oh,
situation.
wow.
And
Wow. That's great
in a
work.
sacrificial way, which
Yeah.
unfortunately the church on the right wing side has not done at all. But there are other people
Oh,
out there that
geez.
actually do care and doing good work. You won't read about them in the paper, but they're out there working. So anyway, it's
Yeah.
been a heavy thing.
Well,
Too much
thank you for
immersion.
being part of that. That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Well, I'm happy to have all three of you guys with us today and for teaching and playing some jazz. And that means we're going to be learning a little bit. I always like to take a moment and welcome everybody because they do tend to tell us where they're from. And we do a lot of these live events, by the way, for those of you who aren't familiar with that, just about every single week. I get somebody on here, and these guys have all done this with me before, but this is a virtual masterclass where there will be learning, and our grand prize winners are standing by. We will be announcing also our second and third place winners, so make sure you stay tuned in case you entered this contest. Let's just say hello to some folks, or let them say hello to you. We have Steve is in Brisbane, Australia, and very nice for you to say hello. Rusty is saying hello to everybody. Johnny. I've heard you called a lot of things. I don't think, well, I mean, all good things, John. I've never heard you called Johnny,
I'm
but
Johnny.
Johnny? Okay.
That's Rusty. I
Marcella?
call him Rustarino, so we're even. He's the
Rustarino.
Rustarino.
Okay, that's good. George Cole, thanks for joining us. George has been around for quite a while with Artist Works, and I'm always happy to see him here. And Samuel from Italy.
Cool. And Marcelo, thank you, man. Obrigado, Marcelo.
Okay. Obrigado. What's that mean? Thank you.
That's right.
Okay,
Obrigado.
good.
Obrigado.
All right. And we just have a couple more saying hello to us. Vladiska. I don't
Vlad.
know.
Vlad's
Do you
from
know?
Germany.
Okay, you guys are shaking your heads like you know this person, so
Of
this is
course.
great. And Stefan or Stephen is joining us from England. Thank you so much. I hope you're enjoying it. And I know my family. You know Eric, you and John. You both know my dad.
Absolutely.
My dad's a sax player, and John, you've been very kind to him in the past. Thank you so much. And
He's
my
a great
sister
guy.
too. Yeah. Oh, that's sweet of you. He had a whole, jazz history and career playing. So I think we have just one more here. We'll say hello to Ivan from Athens, Georgia. And he saw John Patitucci in Hong Kong. I think that's supposed to just be Hong Kong. Okay. Anyway, we have one more from Chile. We have to let that one in.
Ah,
Yeah.
Felipe. Hey, man.
Thank you.
Felipe.
Yeah, it's so nice to have everybody joining us from the four corners of the world. That's really great. So, as I mentioned to everyone, we do have some grand prize winners with us today. And so, what we're going to do is get this virtual masterclass underway. And the first person to be teaching will be John Patitucci. And John has been with us for many years at Artist Works. So, we kind of call him Professor. And the rest of these guys on the screen we also call Professor. And he teaches jazz bass at Artist Works, both upright and electric. But I think today we're focusing on electric. Is that right, John?
Yes, because our prize winner Eldon is an electric. Well, he plays both actually, but he's got his
Does
electric.
he?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll tell you what, let's say goodbye to Peter and Eric just for a few minutes while we bring on our winners. Our winner. Bye, Peter. Eric, we'll see you in a few minutes. And so now I would like to introduce our first prize winner, one of our first prize winners, and his name is Eldon. And so I will leave you as well and allow John Patitucci and Eldon, who is from Indiana, learn and teach. There you go. Take it away. Hi, Eldon. Welcome to the virtual masterclass.
Thank you very much. It's both an honor and a pleasure. So thank you.
All right, Eldon. So we conversed by email before, and I want to if I would ask you, what's the most important issue you are kind of wrestling with right now in your playing?
Well, what I was talking about there was I feel like when I start to get to real minor 2/5s, I'm lost.
Okay.
I'm not right. I know I'm not right.
Yeah. I think sometimes what happens is in academia, people stress the theoretical thing, which is very important, but we have to go to training our ears first. And I think since when you're talking about minor 2/5s, I'm assuming you're talking about the language of jazz, like the linear language, when you hear some great horn player play on a 2/5 and they're very expressive, and there'll be that's just D minor to G7. That's all that is. But I'm not thinking scales. I'm thinking melodies at that point. It doesn't, of course, not less than me knowing D minor all over the bass, from the lowest note on the bass to the highest. But it's the rhythm that carries those scales, arpeggios, and little chromatic link-ups that makes it happen. If I just play a D minor scale with no rhythm, it's not very interesting. So I would say transcription is how you learn your language. Just like when you were a baby and you heard your parents speaking, you didn't just learn the words. You kind of learned the rhythm they spoke in, the syntax, the kind of sound they had, the accent that they spoke with. You kind of memorized it, right?
Right.
So you can do this with jazz, and especially with bebop. For me, at first, when I heard bebop, I couldn't make heads or tails of it. I thought it sounds like gibberish. I have no idea what's going on. And it was exciting, but I had no idea. So let's do something really, really simple.
Okay.
So let's say D minor. Okay, so can you play a D minor 7 arpeggio, just real slow? D minor, though.
Oh, minor. You said minor. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so even with just those notes, if you put the right phrasing, like a tenor player might go. Yeah, I did. Almost. Yeah. Now you're learning something already, because you notice that when horn players play, they don't play the shapes that fall under our bass hands.
Right. Yeah.
They play, So I had to rethink my technique when I started learning this language.
Okay.
And this is just for improvising. There's also a whole language of walking and 2-beat feel of bass playing and stuff like that. It's so many things, right?
Right.
Like let's take something simple. Let's walk in D minor around this tempo, and just play in D minor for me and walk a little bit. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so Eldon, so this is what I want you to do. Again, we need to study this language from our musical fathers and mothers now. So I'm going to say, check out Ron Carter and Ray Brown. Listen to them playing on a minor blues, listen to Ron play like on a D minor, or even the way he plays on So What with Miles.
Right.
So he'll play something like. So he's voice leading using sequences. The first sequence he's doing a chromatic one. His favorite signature one is D, E flat, E flat, D. And you would think, wow, he's playing a flat 9 and a 9 and the root, but he goes and the 5th. Now, because it's not just the notes, it's the voice leading, it's where they go. It sounds like they're traveling somewhere and coming back home to D minor. So it's voice leading, and it's the rhythmic thing. He'll do stuff like little triplet licks. So you have to learn that. So do that really slow. So you have to play the low D twice. So it's like 1. So there's a triplet that starts on beat 2. 1. So yeah. So it's rhythmic and it's ear training, because you have to get the intervals, and then you have to play them with the right rhythmic inflection. So now I use open strings too. Sometimes on electric bass, people don't use the open strings enough, and it doesn't swing the same way, because you kind of need to use the open strings to pivot like an upright bass. See how it has a different kind of bounce when we use the open string to pivot off of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Now I want to say, because we only have a few minutes, because this is such a high speed, educational process we're doing today. But what questions do you have? Given I've just sort of loaded you up with a couple of ideas about, kind of intake of this language.
Give me a list of bass lines and solos that I should start with to transcribe.
Okay. Ron Carter on West Montgomery, there's a tune called The Thumb. It's a blues in G.
Okay.
Incredible. Then there's another one that's on a record called Tequila. That's Wes Montgomery, Ron Carter, killing. Then Ron Carter on another Wes Montgomery song called Sundown, which is a blues. And I can't remember whether that's in A or D. It's another unusual key. But just his line construction and how he spells out the chords with the most incredible rhythmic feel. It's a textbook, and he is the most beautiful harmonic architect, linear architect on the bass. When he walks a bass line, it has that weight like a Bach Baroque bass line. It has that kind of heavy gravitas, they call it, that it's just happening.
Right.
So he's and then also I would take you to those Ray Brown records with Oscar Peterson. We Get Requests or Night Train, and listen to how he plays a blues, a regular blues, like a blues in F or whatever. His construction and his rhythmic power and his bounce. Because the most important thing that I can leave you with today is the rhythmic thing. Is people are always concerned about the front of the note, but it's the end of the note and how you let it go that really makes the groove what it is. Because if we hold on too long, it can take away from the bounce of the groove. If we play too short, it can be kind of clipped and not happening. So that's what I want to kind of. Any more questions before we're almost done here? So
can I just ask one thing though, John? And maybe this is good or not good for Eldon. You're talking about rhythm so much there, and how important it's the back end, let's say, of the note is, and the bounce of the rhythm. Could you just talk a little bit more about those concepts, John, and what you really mean there? Because it's not immediately apparent what you're talking about there.
Okay, so the bounce in jazz music, I make all my students play some ride cymbal and listen to Elvin, and listen to, like, the record I take them to practice the ride cymbal is Herbie Hancock's first record called Taken Off with Billy Higgins, another one. And the bounce of the ride cymbal, the triplet, that's a whole nother conversation where we would get into 6/8 and abaquois and the African rhythms that came before the ding-ding-a-ding. So I think we can't really get into all that right now, but suffice it to say that the bounce in jazz music comes from a lot of different ways to play the eighth note. But the triplet thing, if you don't have the triplet inside your eighth note, the triplet inside every quarter note in jazz, that's there. And until we really access that and understand that, we can't make it feel right. It won't sound the same. It won't sound as broad or big. Does that make sense, Eldon?
Yes, it does. Very much so.
Yeah. So that's key. The triplet informs everything we do. Does that make sense to you, Patricia?
Yeah, I really appreciate you explaining that, because it's just a concept that is a little bit foreign to me, and I wondered if it might be to the rest of the folks that are listening as well. And I mean, you're just so deeply into jazz that I think phrases come out sometimes that are not entirely familiar to everyone else. But speaking about being very deeply into jazz, I think as bystanders, Peter and both Eric may have a little wee bit to add to this conversation. So how about I take myself out of it as the classical flutist in the group and add Peter and Eric. And Eldon, we're going to keep you on here too. Is that okay?
That would be great.
Okay, very good. Here we go. There's Peter and there's Eric. So you guys take it from here.
Eric, may I jump in to follow John's wonderful presentation?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Eldon, there was so much great information packed into what John just told you and all of us who are here. That the subdivision informs the note, even if you're not playing a triplet figure. That feel, and just in terms of the release and the envelope or shape of the note. And this is something that I encourage drummers and indeed all musicians who want to play improvised music with any kind of swing element, that they be aware of the subdivision. That's not only what defines the music, but really gives not only it a feel, gives each of us our own feel or sound. John, I was chatting with Ron Carter, and I happened to mention that I had the occasional bass student studying with me at USC. And Ron goes, "Oh, what does a drummer teach a bass student?" And I said, "Well, for starters, I said I teach him to listen to more George Duvivier."
Ooh,
And
yeah.
and Ron looked at me surprised, and he gave me the biggest hug. And I knew he would dig that because I knew how much he loved and respected George Duvivier. And Eldon, if I may just add to what John said and offer the suggestion, if you're not familiar with the bass playing of George Duvivier, spelled Duvivier, try to find some recordings. You'll be rewarded. The the swing feel was incredible, but also the release. What John was talking about, the length of the notes. George had a I guess John, you could say a more truncated, kind of shorter.
Yeah, thick and short. And,
Yeah.
and there's a record with is it Ben Webster? It's either Ben Webster or Coleman Hawkins, and is it Sweets Edison? And Hank Jones is on piano. That record, George Duvivier is killing on that record.
Well, there's another fun one, since we're mentioning recordings, where George Duvivier and Ron Carter trade eights. It's an Oliver Nelson album, and I'll you know what, I'm gonna find a link and I'm gonna post it in the comments, not the private chat, but in the comments for everyone, while Eric takes the floor, because it's so much fun to listen to. Okay.
Thank
Eric, you got it.
All right.
Yeah, no, everything I was really enjoying listening to what you were saying, John, and what Peter just said about the end of a note and on a bass. It just makes such a difference in how the floor of the music feels. If and it depends on on the style of music that you're creating, and whether it's a thumpy Major Holly kind of a thing, or if it's something that where you're creating a real bed, where if the bass line is choppy, then it breaks up the sonic balance of the music in general too. But there's always that relationship that when we listen to music between the bass player and the drummer, when you really break down a rhythm section, and where not only the time, we're always talking about practicing with a metronome and making sure that your time is just, you have control over what you're doing, and that you can be a little on top if that's what the music calls for, or a little back if that's what it calls for. But then, beyond that, the communication between the bass and drums, and, and just, it's a matter of, John, you can speak to it, but, depending on the style of music, should you be on the top side of the beat? Should you be on the back side? Not to the point where you can even tell metronomically, but you can certainly tell from the feel. And so, I always actually, since I first heard about that whole concept of the relationship between bass and drums, I listen to different styles of music and different players, and enjoy that, especially in a live situation. And when it feels right for the horn player, it just creates this amazingly comfortable bed to play, not play on top of, because we're all communicating together, but to play, and create together. It just makes the whole the music feel so great.
Yeah, I think that's it. Totally.
Yeah, well, that's you guys have added a lot of meat to the bones. Let's put it that way, John. Great lesson, Eldon. I hope that it's been helpful to you. Of course, this is all going to be recorded, so you'll absolutely have this to look back on, even if it's been a little nerve-wracking here. We want to thank you for joining us, and I hope it's been helpful to you.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful, and it's definitely worthy of watching again and again, and I'm going to get to work.
It's great to see you, Eldon. Great.
So, as a grand prize winner, Eldon will have VIP access to all 3 courses for 12 months. So, we're
Wow.
talking about, drum teachers, teaching bass players, and all of that. And then, of course, you have your live one-on-one here as well. And there will be signed CDs and a super swag bag coming your way. But we are looking forward to welcoming you to be on Artist Works for the next 12 months and all 3 courses. And I hope that you'll let us know how that's all going.
Oh, I will. And I will certainly take advantage of this. And I very, very much appreciate it. Thank you, all of you. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Eldon, and stay
Well-
backstage so you can watch the whole thing, okay?
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, professors, plural.
You teach
That's
all,
really great.
all about reeds, man. You can learn all about my saxophone reeds, and
Oh man! All right. Well, Eric, you are up next, and we have Bruce who is standing by. And for those of you who are not aware, I want to just make sure that you understand that a lot of people that play saxophone also play the flute, and so Eric is a master at both. And so he is going to be teaching, even though he's a saxophone player, he's going to be teaching a flutist by the name of Bruce. And so Peter and John will be backstage, and they will return after this lesson, not this message. So I will say hello to Bruce and bring him on the screen here. And Eric, I'll just turn it over to you.
cool. Hey,
Welcome,
Bruce.
welcome, Bruce.
Hey, thank you.
How you doing, man?
Well, been
Good.
enjoying the lesson so far.
Yeah, me too. Actually, it just shows right here. I mean, you with your flute and myself with the saxophone. It shows, the universal, thing with music and musicians, especially when you're talking about jazz and improvisation and concepts that are less technical but more musical, harmonic and melodic, and all. So, and you and I have been communicating over the last couple of days as far as what we want to work on for these 10 minutes, and like John alluded to, and I'm sure Peter will mention this as well, but how we take music and playing jazz and improvising. There's 2 sides of it. We think about the technique side of it. We think about the theoretic side of what we need to work on, but then we also think about the musical side. Not that theory isn't musical and vice versa, but whatever, the things we're going to talk about briefly are more theoretic and maybe more jazz harmony, but it always has to be musical. Somebody once told me, whenever you're practicing anything, a long tone, a scale, a articulation pattern or type, it always play music. And how do you make a major scale sound musical? Well, listen to other people, feel it. Music is an art. An art is subjective, and the feel of a phrase and the energy that we put forward into it is, about how it feels. So one of the things we were talking about, just in terms, again, on the theory side, is, how do we become more familiar with, number one, how do we become more familiar with the tools that it takes to play? When we improvise, we do want to think about, to a point, the scales that are involved, the arpeggios that are involved. How do we get from one chord to the next chord? I play with John, and Peter Erskine's played with everybody under the sun, and so has John for that matter. But John and I both play in Chick Corea's electric band, and I've asked Chick, countless times over the past 33 years, about something, that relates to a tune, a series of changes that he wrote. And, his answers are always incredibly interesting, but never to do with scales or theory. It's always about the music, hard to define it, but we want to start somewhere. So one thing we can work on is this idea that we talked about as far as motif building, where if you're working on a particular scale or type of scale, say we'll start with major scales, and when we talk, and I learned this from John. We were, I remember once asking John what he's working on, and he says he's practicing diminished scales, but he wasn't practicing diminished scales just up and down. You're dissecting them and playing them in different ways, because that's what we do when we improvise, right? And so you can create, and this is a great technical practice just for your instrument as well, as far as an exercise goes. But consider yourself creating a 4-note pattern or motif based on a particular scale. So, for instance, if we have a D major scale, so in your case, your key of D. So this. So once we kind of get a good handle on that, now let's create some motifs. So create a 4-note pattern. How about the first degree, third, second, fourth? And do it 4 times to get used to it. And now go up a half step. So now, so now it'll be. So forth, because now we're dissecting the scale and playing it in a different sort of a way. So because of that, it's a pattern, you're really, playing it and learning it in a different sort of way. Plus, it really does, help us think about, rather than looking at a scale and learning a scale, and then getting it like to the point where it's muscle memory. Now we're really having to think about what we're doing. So pick a key, and what is that? What's happening there? The cat. Oh man,
Darcy.
What key is that cat in? So
I don't know.
if you got your flute handy, pick a major scale and play it as I did, just up and down.
I'll just do the D that you did.
Pick a key. Actually, it doesn't even matter. Whatever you prefer.
How about A flat?
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, beautiful sound, even online. Cool. So now use the motif pattern that I just used. And just do it 4 times in that key. So 1, 3, 2, 4. Cool. Awesome.
And then
How about a half step higher? Cool. And you can even now take that same exercise and, as far as the exercise is concerned, the concept of it is that you can apply this to whatever scale you're working on. You can also apply it to using for different kinds of articulations. So if you're, and just come up, people ask, what can I practice? I really don't have that many books. Come up with 5 different patterns over one particular type of scale that you're working on. And within those patterns, like we're doing 1, 3, 2, 4, come up with another pattern, 7, 1, 3, 1, or 7, 1, 2, 3, or, write those down. And then, and then decide on for each of those 5 patterns, which articulation you want to use. And with all that, make sure you're practicing with your metronome. Woo, you got a serious practice routine right there without looking at a note, and incredibly valuable because you're really internalizing the scales that you're working on. So, and then the other thing too, just improvisationally, is if we were talking about a D Dorian minor scale. So it's a D major scale with a flat third and a flat 7th. So you want to play that one for me? I'll play it first. Your turn. Awesome. Yeah. So now we think about the arpeggio, the root, third, fifth, and the seventh as the backbone of our chord. So you got it. Right. Very good. Now, the next step, and I know I'm moving quickly, but we only have a little bit of time. Those can be, when we think about creating improvised melodies, we're thinking about, we want to be musical, but we also want to be connected to the chord we're playing. So one of many, but one fun exercise to do is to create a melody, an improvised melody, as long or as short as you want to, with one rule. And the rule is that the first note of that melody and the last note have to be chord tones, has to be a root, third, fifth, or seventh. So following that rule, if I want to come up with a melody in this key, I come up with this. So I started on the fifth, I went down to the third diatonically using the scale, went up to the seventh, and then played the fifth again. So again, I follow the rule. I use all just notes from that scale, but the first and third note rule. So let me have you do something that's on the same thing. Very cool. All right. Yeah, do a couple more. Very cool. Awesome. Beautiful, man. So not only can we be diatonic with our in between notes, shall we say, but you can also be chromatic. So you can use chromaticism, like what John was talking about as far as the Ron Carter bass line going from the root to the chromatically up to the ninth and then back down to the root again. It's where you end up that's important, and what you can do. People talk about, well, how do I play out? How do I play outside the scale? It needs to be something that we it can't be random, but in a sense, as long as you have the response to the call, call and response, tension and release, as long as you release. As I'm saying this, I'm feeling this thing here. It's like the jazz police are kind of saying, well, you're making up all these rules. Music is art and art is subjective, and so to say this is the way to do it is not accurate, but it is one way to approach how we can create melodies. So try the same rule and use some chromaticism. The key, however, is that every note has to be thought of. It can't just be it can't be random. So yeah, you can have your starting note and you can have your ending note in mind. Not that you have to have your ending note in mind when you start. You have to, but you have to be targeting something. But you have to give some forethought to every single note that is played. Right. So I started on a chord tone. I ended on a chord tone, and there were, there's chromaticism and whatever. So you try something like that. Yeah, very, very cool. And the track I sent you, you can practice over that because it'd be fun, cool. You got something to play over. But so I know we're getting to the end of our time here, but so this is it's like well, how do I phrase a melody? How do I what I get the fact that I want to start on a chord tone as an option and end on a chord tone, and in between I can create my melodies by using either diatonic notes or chromatic passing tones or whatever. But then beyond that, it really is, like John mentioned, it's about listening. And people say, well, if you listen a bunch to John Coltrane or Cannibal Adderley or Charlie Parker or Herbie Mann or whoever, then you're stealing his stuff and you're going to sound just like him. Everybody has their own heart Everybody has their own soul. Everybody has their own idea of the music that they want to create. So when we transcribe and listen to other music, we're putting it into our own mix, our own, eventual outcome in the music. So, the more we listen, the more we take in, the more we, just feel the energy and just feel the inspiration of the music that we want to, create ourselves. Any questions I can answer for you?
Jeez, no, thank you very much, Eric. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Oh man, my pleasure. Thank you. You sound great, man.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, Bruce. And while I still have you on here, and as the only 3 woodwind players that are here, one question I had for you, Eric, is the role that creating good sound and tone has in practice. Do saxophone players do long tones to work on your sound, and do you have any advice on that for us?
Yeah, I mean, for any of my my artist work students who are watching, you better be doing your long tones. We've been talking about that. Yeah, just like I mean, on the flute. And by the way, Patricia Butler is a very, very accomplished flute player herself. She's modest about it, but she's extremely accomplished. So probably as far as the flute is concerned, she could address that better than I. But yeah, we develop our sound when we play. I play the flute as well, and it really is about here. I mean, we want to, as we're playing our long tones. The beauty of long tones is that our attention isn't taken up by other technical issues. We're able to focus exactly just on that one issue of tone production. And so when you're playing that note, what is it that can grow your sound? For me on the flute, it's about the direction of the air, of course, but creating a large man, especially on the flute, on the saxophone as well, but just a large flow of air. So whenever I'm playing, I'm thinking throat position in that same way. If you're speaking in a low voice or you sing your lowest note, saying not e. E brings this up, brings this down, and it makes such a difference in the tone quality and the intonation too. The instrument, it's a wind instrument, meaning that it requires wind to operate correctly. And if we give it, it's like a race car. If you get the right kind of fuel, it's going to respond the way it was built to. So if you give our wind instruments the right kind of air and at the right volume of air, I don't mean volume of sound. I mean loud and soft volume. Not only the larger our sound is, but the more flexible it is. And there's more room to create inflection and all that. And then also, intonation wise, intonation is everything. It's not everything, but if you don't play in tune, nothing else matters. I'll put it that way.
No,
And
it
so
doesn't matter.
right. And so, by opening up, it allows the instrument to work the way it was intended. And, you have an intonation problem very often just by that one thing of opening your throat, centers it. If you're high, it'll break it down. If you're low, it'll bring it up.
Oh, thank you for that, Maestro. I appreciate it. And Bruce, thank you so much.
Thank you guys
for joining us. And
my pleasure.
You probably remember, but I'll say it just in case, that you have won 3 different memberships for 12 months. So you will not only be learning from Eric, but from Peter and John as well. And I'm actually going to add one more in there, which is Jeffrey Kaner, who is the principal flutist of the Philadelphia Orchestra. He doesn't do video exchanges any longer, but he goes through the whole classical practice flute and of course, etudes and all of that. But we're going to add that in there for you as well. And
Thank you.
For the next year, you're gonna have a lot to do.
Okay, cool.
But that's okay. All right. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Eric.
Cool, Bruce. Thank you, man.
Enjoy some time backstage, and now we'll bring back John Patitucci and Peter Erskine and see. If they have anything more to add to the conversation. Maybe we should have Bruce back on, though. Peter and John, do you have thoughts about Bruce's playing? Yes. Okay. Well, then we're going to bring Bruce right back.
Bruce, welcome back.
Thank you.
It sounded great. I loved when you were improvising, or really you were composing in real time melodies based on the rules of the game that Eric suggested. And this is a wonderful practice method. It's a very effective teaching method of imposing rules. I mean, it's a great self-discovery method. You'll realize when you stop playing out of habit, and you just work within the confines of this rule or that rule. That this becomes the mother of invention, and that was a terrific melody. You should rewind the tape and check it out and write it down. I think you have the start of a good tune. The one thing I wanted to mention, and I was delighted to hear Eric mention this about the jaw opening up. Eric, this is an interesting phenomenon that we encounter in drumming. I've often noticed in photos of myself that, I kind of always look like that, and it's not the most flattering, but my jaw is relaxed. And Jeff Hamilton and I were having a conversation, and he was working with a student drummer, and it wasn't feeling right. Something, and then Jeff noticed the guy had his lips kind of pursed in tension. So he suggested, open your mouth, and open up your jaw, and the beat felt better. So oftentimes this tension of, when we clench our jaw here has an impact on the way that we're using the rest of our body or playing an instrument. Quick story, when I was taking a lesson from my professor at Indiana University, I'm working very hard on the snare drum etude, and my tongue was sticking out. And so the professor pushed himself back from the desk. He motioned that I should continue playing. He walked up to me. He had a cigar. He took the cigar out of his mouth, took his pinky, pushed my tongue back in, took another puff on a cigar, and then went, okay. So that was, tension being manifest. So it's not a bad idea to, I wonder if the guys will agree that practicing in front of a mirror or using video, and look for any signs of tension in the obvious places or in some of the less obvious places, because and this is where Alexander technique gets into some of this, and we are our bodies, and our bodies are the most important part of our instrument.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you, Peter. That's really great insight from a drummer to a woodwind player. That's terrific. Thanks. Because certainly we can hold tension in our bodies, and it affects our sound. It affects our movement as well. Sometimes those fast passages come up and we're pretty tense because we're nervous about them and maybe didn't practice them as long as we should have. And it can change the way we all sound. So Bruce, thank you once again for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys.
And please enjoy some time backstage. So we've got some questions here from our audience. I wonder, do you guys want to play a little bit before we get to the questions and announce the second and third place winners? Would you like to just do a little something? Anybody want to take the mic? John's saying, yes, of course. Okay, so now you guys need to figure out what you're going to do, because I kind of threw a little bit of a wrench in the works. But that's okay. You guys are used to improvisation, right?
That's jazz.
That's jazz.
Yeah, we're the jazz teachers at ArtistWorks. Come on.
Yeah.
And I'll do my class after our little jam.
Well, yes, Peter, do you just want to? I think that's a good idea. I wish we had a student for you, but I would love to hear you speak after the jam. Absolutely.
My pleasure.
Totally.
All right. Okay, so we're doing a three-way. Why don't we go reverse order? Eric, why don't you start us off, and then I'll follow, and then John will wrap it up.
Cool. Okay.
Oh, that was great. We needed a little musical interlude there. Thank you so very much. That was great. Thank you, John. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Peter. So now, for those of you who are listening, We are going to announce our second place winners, and then we're going to have Peter do a little bit of a lesson here. So our second place winners win at ArtistWorks a membership to these 3 courses with Eric, Peter, and John, and it is for 6 months. So our second place winners, we have 3 of them, and the first one is Kimberly C., who is from Atlanta, Georgia. So if you're with us, Kimberly, just put something in the shout. If you're not, it's okay. We're going to find you. And Rich B. from Wellington, Florida has also won second place. In addition, Leroy W. from Hockason, Delaware. I'm sorry, I don't know that town, but he's from that place. Hockason, Delaware, Leroy W. So those 3 people have won 6 months at ArtistWorks plus a little bit of swag with all 3 courses. So congratulations to them for signing up for this contest. And if your name was not announced, you may still be a third place winner. So hang in there. If you don't even want to wait, you're welcome to take advantage of artistworks.com/free lessons and get some free sample lessons, or you can use class 75 and get $75 taken off at checkout at artistworks.com. Anyway, now it is time to hear from Peter, and then we're going to take some questions that have been building up from the virtual students, let's say, or our viewers, and they've got some terrific questions. So Professor Erskine, teach us something.
Thank you. Okay, real quickly, I saw 2 of the questions in the comments section. One said, I'm not a drummer, but I own a drum set. Rhythm is what I most need to work on. Well, you and a few drummers I know. My online course does work wonderfully for beginners as well as very experienced and even professional players. We took a lot of time and care to create a course. Regardless of your level, I always recommend that everyone start at the beginning. I often make the parallel suggestion or observation. I'm a bit of a camera enthusiast, but I'm always happy to go over the basics about photography, and not only in terms of composition of the shots, but it's the basics of light entering a camera and how all that works. So yeah, give it a shot. The Play Along app, to answer another question, is one of the apps that my company has released. That was the Bob Mintzer Big Band. We have several small group, straight ahead jazz ones, as well as Brazilian and Afro-Caribbean styles of music and genres, all of them with built-in mixers, so they're not just drummer-centric. You can remove any one of the instruments. So whatever you play, there's a play-along home for you, and that's important now, with the fact that we can't get together so easily or safely with other people to make music. It's the new reality. So having a play-along app, I created these things, but I still find something new, and I enjoy surprising myself when I play along with these play-alongs. And I'll give you a brief example. I'm going to play some brushes. This is basically the tune Autumn Leaves. Let me switch. I'll go to the overhead, and 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so right there I was just trying this fill idea. And I have that safety net of the app. That's something I might want to practice alone, but practicing it in the context of playing kind of helps me know how to fit this into a piece of music. Now, just echoing what Eric was saying when he was working with Bruce, um, you know, how does it sound? Um, these courses could all be very short and sweet. We could just say, "Hey, play what you want to hear," and really one of the best teachers for all of us is listening, and that's one thing I know that John and Eric and I all share in common. We've spent literally thousands of hours in front of a record player listening to this music, and uh, among some of the things that I enjoyed listening to uh, were the melodies. That's also echoing what John and Eric both mentioned in their lessons, the art of melody. So I thought I would just speak very quickly about playing melodies on the drum set because, and don't go away if you're a non-drummer, um, uh, because here I am on a relatively two-dimensional instrument. I don't have access to 88 notes like on a piano. So how do I play a melody on a snare drum? So let's look at Billy's Bounce. You know, I could try singing it. I'm not a very good singer, but hey, not bad. Okay, now how do I suggest the higher notes versus the lower notes of the melody? If I just go, that just sounds like rat-a-tat, tat, 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 tat. But if I play the higher notes with a little more, let's say, emphasis or volume, that would be like a horn player when he or she would push a little more air. Eric, you can, when you come back on, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it takes a little more air or diaphragm energy to play a higher note. And the louder note just suggests a higher note to the mind's ear, I think. And so then in doing that, I'm also going to change my sticking. So I'll give the higher notes to my right hand. So instead of going, I'll go. And this gives my drumming a melodic sense. So we can be melodic without scratching our head or thinking too hard. You know, how do I play melodic? Um, uh, Melodic comes from just singing and being aware of the melody inside of you. And if you can sing it, you can play it. To be melodic is to be more legato. That's really the hallmark of this music. I mean, you know, in addition to being aware of the triplet, we have to be aware of this legato sense because, you know, I don't go ta 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 ta. It's ba do do ba do do ya da do da da boo ba da do da do ba do do. So combine everything John said about the way horn players phrase, the way they connect notes. Um, John, you worked for so many years with Michael Brecker, and I would marvel at the way Michael, you know, which notes he would choose to connect and which ones where he would choose to re-articulate. You know, I mean, it was dazzling. For me, it was like just like a roller coaster ride listening to him play. I was like, holy cow! It's incredible how he chose to do it and how it made it feel. Uh, you worked more with Michael near the end of his life, which ended far too soon. But getting away from that loss, the joy of getting to create alongside him must have been overpowering.
Totally. And he was a great drummer.
Yep.
He shocked the heck out of me one day. I kind of knew that he did, you know, he played some piano and did some drums, but one day we were working on a Mike Stern record and we were at Euphoria Studios in New York City, and Jack DeJohnette was playing drums, and it took him, he got stuck in traffic coming down from Woodstock. And Mike Stern was getting antsy and he wanted to rehearse. And Mike said, okay, Mike, just take it easy. and Mike sat down on the drums and he played. Not only was he swinging like Elvinish kind of stuff, but he had a lot of chops. He was like blowing.
Yeah.
And I was playing and I was like, gosh, dang it. He swings better than a lot of drummers I played with. I mean, he was, and that just proves our point once again. Without rhythm and phrasing and accents, that's the other thing on the drums. The great drummers like Peter and all these guys that I've been blessed to play with, it's the accents and where they put the things that make it swing or funky or whatever. When there's no accent on anything, nothing happens. They could have the greatest hands in the world, but if they don't go, those little accents and things and the way they fall, or funk, if somebody goes boom, the way they place those things and the accent that you guys do. I always wanted to be a drummer. My dad didn't let me. I have a drum set right over there. I try to practice, but
John, do me a favor. Ask me, Peter, what does it take? Give me a moment, but just say, what does it take to be a great drummer?
Peter, what does it take to be
timing?
A drummer? Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Because without time and rhythm,
that was good
on the floor. That was very good.
That was good. The first time I recorded with Chick Corea, it was a Joe Henderson record date, and Joe Henderson was late, and so while we're waiting, Chick said, "Can I play your drums?" Yeah, sure. I had no idea what to expect, and very quickly I was wondering, like, what in the world am I doing here? Because Chick he just sounded unbelievably great on the drums, and everybody. You might think it odd that I say, this is just what the world needs right now, especially right now, more drummers. But you all should learn how to play the drums. And in fact, at the University of Southern California, every pop and jazz major, no matter what instrument they play or if they sing, they're required to take a semester of drum set proficiency, and they become much better musicians because they learn to respect the spaces between the notes.
Great.
Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you. Bravo. Terrific lesson. Thank you, Peter.
John and I are going to take this show on the road.
It's a dog and pony show, maybe. I don't know.
There you go.
I'll drive.
But that's your part, Peter.
Eric and I have a long-running show in the Chick Corea Electric Band. They used to call us Jerrig.
Derek. That's good. I like it.
We tended to hang out quite a lot.
Well, if it's okay with you guys, we've had some folks patiently waiting with some questions. It may involve some playing. I'm not sure. But I'm just going to put these questions up here, and maybe we could just one of you answer each question, and let's see where this takes us. Jeff Taylor's been very patient since 1:29. He's been asking. Oh, sorry. That was not his question. He wanted to know, why are you guys not playing? That's not a good question. No, somebody was asking about playing a lot of notes in between. How do you? Oh, here we go. This is it. Do you think it's important to memorize dozens of phrases for 2-5-1 to make good solos? So that's for Eric. What's your thought on that, Eric?
Yeah, I think Peter and John would have a good input there too. But that kind of goes to the idea of playing licks, if you will. Having a preconceived idea, of what you're going to play is cool. I mean, we're creating. Every musician has their, has some library of ideas, shall we say, of what we either play, I don't know, verbatim or a part of. It's all about how we play something and how we develop it and how we move forward. Remember that in playing a melody, the melody is linear, right? So a melody isn't vertical. It's not that and then that and then that. It's all one. What we, just like speaking, what we are about to say has everything to do with what we just said. And so we're continuing a thought process. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not a bad idea whatsoever to, to learn licks, if you will. The problem is a lot of times when you learn a lick, it becomes like trying to squeeze a square peg in a round hole. Being too, it just sounds, too much like a lick. It doesn't feel like a spontaneous idea, or it doesn't. Rarely, if you put a particular, you've got this 2-5-1 coming up, and here we go. 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna put it like now. Rarely does it feel right, because you're thinking about the lick and not what you're doing with it, what you're putting it, what's happening rhythmically around it, or sonically around it, or from a balance point. I mean, all these other things. So yes, it's okay to have ideas, Marcelo, and be thinking like we do in our lessons, right? But we want to, just make sure that it's not too, that it fits and it's melodic and it's as spontaneous as it can be. John,
Thank you very much for that answer. That's a good one. John, you got something to add
Yeah,
to that?
I think also too, it's if you start to think of it like a language. So if you expand your language and you learn a lot of melodies, instead of thinking of it as an isolated lick, if you learn a language, that means you learn how to think in that language. So bebop is really like that, in my opinion. You start at first like a child learns English, no grammar book, but they learn how to imitate their parents, right? Saying phrases. You learn phrases, and you learn more phrases, and you learn a ton of phrases, and then you start to learn how to think like those guys that you hear on the records. That's when you really start improvising, because now you're learning to think like them rather than just be like a parrot and just mimic them. And that I think runs right next to what Eric is saying. He's talking about developing melodic ideas, and you learn from the great ones, and they play beautiful melodies, and you go, wow, that's a cool thing. The second thing I would add to that is people get in trouble because they don't think about rhythm. They just start all the ideas on the downbeat and they play through it, and then it sounds like a lick. But if you are flexible rhythmically, you could start that same idea, same shape, melodic shape from many different places. Look at Joe Henderson. Peter mentioned Joe Henderson. What a genius of rhythm. He could take one note, as he did on a song from my father. He took like 1, 2, 3 notes and made a whole solo out of it. So it's a language built from phrases, just like you learn your native tongue. And then you start, you know what I mean? You accumulate those phrases, and then you start to think in that language.
I like your analogy there, and I would love to hear you guys play one note for a long time in different ways and different rhythms. And I'm just saying that might be kind of fun.
I've made a living doing that. John Patitucci, did I just correct me if I'm wrong? Did I see you go parrot?
Yes, you did.
Great.
Oh my!
That made my day. That made my day.
All right, let's take another question. We really should probably move on. Hey, can you do Yankee Doodle?
I can, but nobody knows who Yankee Doodle is anymore.
I don't care. Do it anyway.
Okay. When I was a kid, there was a B grade cartoon character called Yankee Doodle, and he was like a little bird, kind of like, I don't know, like Tweety Bird kind of, but he was a bee, and they played, his cartoons, but there was a bulldog named Chopper who used to protect him, and he would get he would get in trouble, and he'd go, Chopper! He had a little funny.
Oh, come on, that's not near enough. I just want
and then the bulldog was okay, one of those kind of things. But it was really a bee. He never quite ascended to the ranks of the serious cartoon characters that everybody loved, like Wile E. Coyote and all those guys.
I'll just tell you why I know about this, because I can't help but laugh when I talk about him. But when John was in the studio recording his curriculum, I don't know if something went wrong.
I was losing my mind, actually. Yeah,
you were losing your mind on like day 6 or 7,
yeah.
And he just riffed into Yankee Doodle, and it was hilarious. So what we were having him do at the time was introduce what video exchange
That's
was,
right. As
and
Yankee Doodle, yeah.
and talk about, here's how you learn at ArtistWorks. And he just we made him do the whole thing for like 5 minutes in Yankee Doodle. It's hilarious. You do a great job. And it's just a little levity to add to the serious educational academic
That's right.
oriented event.
Try going on the road with them.
Oh boy.
I love Yankee Doodle. He's hilarious. And thank you for sharing, John. We do have a serious question now. We have to put on our academic hats, and then we're going to hear you guys play again. So here is a question, and I really like this question from Milan, because right now there are a lot of adult sort of beginners or people that have returned to their instruments playing right now. Guitar sales are through the roof. A lot of musical instruments are being purchased because it's all pandemic driven demand. But I really like this question because he's asking about how to practice music a little later in life, and he's suffering from paralysis of analysis after realizing all the things that you want to practice. So, how can you organize your practice when you feel like you have to practice everything or boil the ocean, so to speak, as I've said before? Maybe we could, I don't know, John, Eric's talked quite a bit about some practicing. John or Peter, do you have anything to say there? Mr. Patitucci?
I think,
Peter,
I,
well, we'll have John go first, Peter. Is that all right?
well, Peter, go for it. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
I was just going to answer very quickly that I find a parallel with the pandemic and the lockdown. I kind of made a decision that I was not going to grow the COVID-19 beard or have the hair grow out with the excuse that I can't go to a barber. So I found Amazon, got some clippers, and so I trimmed my beard, trimmed my hair. I didn't wear pajamas. I got up, I got dressed, I would shave. I tried to treat each day like, for lack of a better term, kind of professionally. That's a little bit my hang up. I don't know how to relax. But I just set about these short-term goals for each day, something I wanted to learn, something I wanted to accomplish. So I'd recommend that you create a bit of routine for yourself, create some short-term goals. Warming up is a wonderful way to begin any practice routine because it's a way of saying like communion or having communion for the day with your instrument. Getting in touch with your body, with the sound, with really the universe, with God, however you wish to think of it. And then tone. Work on tone. If you're a guitar player, how beautifully can you play one note? If you're an alto player, if you're a flute player, I mean, when John went to his acoustic bass, he played one note. I mean, it's like heaven. It just sounded so beautiful, and he inhabits the note fully. And this doesn't come from just picking it up a couple times in the course of a week. He's invested the time to get that touch and that relationship. So the short-term goal of just producing a better sound each day, and don't make speed your objective or your target, and you can always compare yourselves like, oh darn it, I can't play as good as this hero or that hero, but find that one thing that hero does, like they were talking about, one or two notes, and the game playing, the restriction of choices. This helps with short-term goals as well. Okay, I don't know that much about harmony, but I'll tell you guys, I did a master class at a junior high school once, and there was a guitar player there, and it was his turn to play, and everyone is playing da 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 da, running scales. He only knew three notes, okay, and the teacher really didn't like this kid. This kid played one of the best solos I've ever heard in my life because knowing he only had three notes, then rhythm was his only, friend. And You sound like BB King. So use what you have and enjoy it. Sorry, I went on for a bit.
That's okay. I do have another question for John, though. If I could just add you that question, ask you that question. Yes. This is from George Cole. He's been a long time customer at Artist Works, and he would like to know if you have any advice on how to study harmony.
Yeah. What happened with me was several things. I read every book on Coltrane that I could get my hands on, and it always talked about how he would sit at the piano and play sounds, and play shapes and chords and sounds, which later on was corroborated by Wayne Shorter to me. Like, he would sit with Train and they would play clusters with their elbows and say, okay, how much of that can you play? And then they would get into these games. So I feel like the piano was really essential for me. Like, I remember when my brother started to go to college, he's 3 years older than I am. We bought a spinet piano because he was a classical guitar major, but he had to take class piano. So they got a little piano for us. And I just started to fool around. Then there was a guy in the Bay Area named Frank Sumares, who was a really good pianist, who taught us a lot of stuff. And he taught me some basic voicing. And just showing me a few different voicings for a dominant seventh chord and a minor chord and a major chord, having voicings that sounded good, more like a piano player, that changed my entire life. I started writing tunes.
Wow.
I started really like getting into the piano, all from a couple of what they used to call A and B voicings. You know, this voicing starts with in the left hand with the flat seven. This one starts with the third, and memorizing these little things. I'm really into memorizing. I memorized a lot of those little voicings, and I was able to move them around. And just bathing in a sound, like saying, okay, I want to work on, and this has to do with also the last question. Like Peter said, spot on as always, and just choose. Like, I had a classical teacher who told me the same thing. Solve one problem in practice session. If you can just get one thing better, then you've done your job. If you try to solve everything wrong in your playing in 3 hours, you'll wind up feeling defeated. You have to stretch your practice time over a week's time and build in, like Peter was saying, time for investigation and discovery on the instrument. That's how I got so much into sound. I would just sit there and play a sound, you know, because I was so influenced by not only bass players, but saxophone players and drummers and guitar players. There was a thing about getting a core thing on every note, getting to the core sound of every note. So I always tell my students, I'm all in on every note, whether it's the electric bass or the acoustic bass. I'm thinking about the touch. I'm thinking about the sound. I want that thick center to every note I play. And if I don't get that, I feel like I didn't get it. So that's that's part of harmony too. Harmony is all about sound. Sound, like Train used to say, if I can get the sound right, then the harmony will fall into place. If I can't really get my sound, I can't really hear the harmony right.
Yeah, well, I love your advice on practicing too. Oh, we're
What's your
hearing
favorite
that.
thing?
I'm all in on every note. See, Peter's taking notes. Great student. He's not only a fabulous teacher, he's a great student as well. But one of the things I liked so much about what you said there, and that is focus on one thing. And so many people don't do that. They really try to do absolutely everything. And there are the fundamentals of practice, playing with the metronome, doing maybe some improvisation, making sure your technique is good and your sound and all of that. But you're saying if something is broken or off, that's really that should be the focus of your practice for a specific amount of time. Is that what you're saying?
It sure helped me focusing on, because when I went to study at San Francisco State, I was only 17 because I have a late birthday. So I felt like I was behind everybody, and I played a lot of every other kind of music, but I played some classical music in high school, but I didn't really have a lot of formal education on the bass. So I was studying with Charles Ciani, who was the principal of the opera, and he told me this, and he really helped me out a lot because he focused me, because I felt like there were so many things that I didn't do well. But he got me to be careful and be patient and just focus. And I got a lot better in a year's time. He really changed my life.
Wow, that's a big endorsement, and thank you for that. We've got a couple of other questions, but we are indeed running out of time. And I wonder if maybe, if you don't mind, I'd like to announce our third place winners. So everybody should listen up, and then have you guys play a little, and we'll call it a class ended kind of a day, I guess. I wanted to mention that those people that got the second place at Artist Works here they have membership to the three schools for 6 months, but they also get some swag, and that's always a fun thing. You know, these guys are signing stuff, sending CDs, and of course, Artist Works has the proverbial coffee mug and thumbnail, and we've got some fun stuff for you. I just didn't want you to think you weren't getting that. But so for our third place winners, we have 3 again. So you guys really should sign up for these contests because it's fun. We're giving away a bunch of memberships, but also some memorabilia as well. So we have 3 third place winners, and the first one is Laura C. And Laura is from Brooklyn, New York. And we also have Dorothea T, and she's from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And then we have Minta B, and Minta is from Cincinnati, Ohio. Now, these are the folks that have won 3 free months with these 3 teachers. So if you have not won anything, don't worry, because everybody's a winner at Artist Works, and you can see scrolling across the bottom of the screen. I feel like I'm in a telethon, by the way. That you can just use this promo code class75, and we will take $75 off of any 1-year purchase. And we would really like to welcome you to Artist Works. And if you're not ready to take that jump yet, it's okay. You can go to artistworks.com/free lessons. That's in the chat over here, and I've had it scrolling on the bottom of the screen as well. And we'd be happy to send you a bunch of free music lessons so you can get started and have an idea what it's like to be a student at Artist Works. So I think maybe it's time to play a little bit more music. What do you guys think? And hello, Howard Paul from Benedetto Guitar. If you guys don't have a Benedetto guitar, go get one. They're great. Fabulous jazz guitars. We have one in our house. We even evacuate with it. So, what would you guys like to play to kind of close out our virtual masterclass?
I don't know. How about this?
God, God, God. You this
Hey,
was
just so everyone out there understands, folks, it's physics that we're up against here.
I know. I thank you for
Latency is
that.
it's a matter of physics, and
Yes. Thank you for that, Peter. Somebody just said, "Why don't they? Can they please play together?" But
You can't.
unfortunately,
Well,
you
we
just
tried it. We forgot that we can't, and then we tried. And
Right.
you see,
Any wrong note that I would have played, it's because of
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's what happened, Eric. That's our story, and we're sticking to it.
we hate bass players. I mean, we hate not being able to play with the drummer.
Yeah,
God,
I'm
and
sure.
I can't do that. And so I was like, oh, and then I was like, oh,
So what? Let's just take this final, 2 or 3 minutes here. What's the first thing you're going to do, Eric? Where are you going first to play, or what's the first thing you're going to do when you are absolutely feel confident you are safe?
anywhere. I have, as I'm sure John and Peter do too. We all have things that have either been postponed or canceled, and there are, as the calendar goes on, as we move through the calendar, now December's being affected now, then January, and so the first thing that actually sticks. Actually, there have been things locally for me that I've done, distanced and where the band's been 10 feet away. I'm actually doing a concert next week in Ventura, California, where it's called Concerts in Your Car, and I did it with another artist
Cool.
in July, I think it was, where it's a giant 40 by 40 stage, and there are big monitors on all four sides of the stage, right, circular or square, and people buy their tickets before and pull up and watch the concert from their car, and the sound is broadcast on a frequency on your radio, so you turn on the stereo and you got the sound. And the funniest thing, it was amazing. It was weird. It was a 3-day gig, and I realized at the end of it, I didn't see the face of a single, audience member, but the funny thing is that after we finished the tune, instead of there being applause, everybody would honk their horns, so yeah, sign of our times. But
What can you do? It's the new normal. I hate that phrase, but it is.
yeah.
It's the
it'll be
new
the old norm
horizon.
soon enough. It'll be the old norm soon enough. We're going to get back.
We're gonna get back. That is right. That is right. How about you,
Well,
Peter? Do you know what you're going to be doing first?
well, no, I mean not. Am I on? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Not until we get a unified national plan of action where everybody does their part to stop the spread of the virus. I mean,
Good
we're
luck
just
with
all
that.
we're fooling ourselves if we think it's just going to magically disappear.
Poof.
In Europe, there are concerts taking place. I watched
Yeah.
a live stream from the Frankfurt Radio Band.
Oh,
And even there, it's not 100% safe. I mean, I think until there is a proven vaccine. I saw something that was a little sobering, and I didn't vet this, but I read the headline that Dr. Fauci was speculating or stating that once a proven vaccine comes along, it'll be at least another year after
dear.
that before people can all sit together in a theater.
Well, we'll
to-
just sit
to
together
watch
here
a
then.
performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess so. I'm sorry,
Why
I didn't
not?
mean to end it on a downer, but
We can. Where there's a will, there's a way. Someone's saying, and I agree.
everybody, please vote November 3rd. Thank
Yes.
you.
John, how about you? What are you doing first? What's any plans yet?
We were supposed to play a distance gig on a rooftop with my Brazilian trio Thursday night in Brooklyn, and it got rained out.
Oh,
Oh man.
Play with masks. It's just guitar, bass, and drums, and we were going to, set up and be on the top of a roof, and there were going to be people sort of far away at table.
yeah.
We're supposed to do it on Thursday night. We'll see if we get rained out again. But I'm not really in a hurry. Like Peter and Eric, I really feel like, and I'm not going to go into the whole political thing because it's been handled very horribly, and that's why we have to vote,
Yeah.
in my opinion, to get rid of a certain person. But
Oh no! Oh no! You said it. Oh no.
so,
Okay.
but the thing about it is, you have somebody like Fauci who's a pretty amazing guy, and when you have somebody like that who actually spends his life with infectious diseases and all this sort of stuff, and you disrespect him and you don't, it's kind of silly.
Yeah, we're not going to get too far, but the music lives on. And one of the things that I have really appreciated personally is being able to be with you guys. And once a week, just about once a week, we have some live event. It's not always a masterclass like this, that's for sure. So I would just encourage everybody to keep your ear to the ground and watch facebook.com/artistworks to see when we're going live again. I'm not sure when the next masterclass and contest is going to be, but you will also learn about the contests at facebook.com/artistworks, just like our friend Eldon did. That's how he found out, right, Eldon?
Yep, that's exactly how.
Well, we want to thank Eldon for being part of this, and Bruce as well. It looks like Bruce already signed off, but thank all of you for being here and kind of putting on display what ArtistWorks does every single day. We teach and people learn, and we have a great community here, and we would love to welcome all of you. And thank you, Peter and Eric and John, for making ArtistWorks even better and helping us to teach the world music. Thank you so very much, and thanks for your time today.
Thank you guys.
Thank you all.
Right. Be well, be safe, breathe clear air.
All right,
Take
you guys.
care.
Much love. Bye.
Bye now.